Alright, hello and welcome back to my RTS in Unity tutorial. Today we're doing, we're starting on building actions. So basically you click a building, you click like a button to build a worker, it builds a worker after a certain length of time, that costs resources and stuff like that. So I'll just quickly demo it. So if we just select all these workers, build a temple. You can do that too. Just send you off to patrol somewhere. Oh shit! Sorry, I was mixing that up with Scout. Right. So once these guys have built this building, so you'll know that when they go to build the storehouse, which so it's done. We'll click the middle and mouse button to deselect them all, and now we'll click the temple. And as you can see, we got a little info box saying what the building is, the building's health, and if we have any actions queued. So if I just, I'm just going to send some workers to get some food first, because we need food to build workers. And I think, okay, so there. Storehouse doesn't do any actions, so if we just spam create worker, we can see that there are 6 actions remaining, and we're currently creating worker, and basically how long we've got left till the worker is created. So if I just click on him, we see that we can now use the worker. So do that, click on him, do that, and we can just send them all to gather resources or something. And this is done basically through a similar action system to the units action system, but I've made a different class basically to for buildings, because buildings will do stuff that's fairly different to units, so they don't really need to be the same class. And yeah, so now let's look at how we did it. Okay, so a few minor changes before we get into the meat of this. Where is it? Selection manager. First off, made a quick change to one of the methods here, right at the bottom, I think, to the selection raycast, where we were passing in a reference of a game object to set to whenever the raycast hit. Basically, we've just set this to a new method to basically set the object to set to be something that comes back from get selection raycast, which basically just fires a raycast at the mouse position and returns any object that it hits. It still works the same, but I needed this method for checking for buildings, and it just seemed like a waste to have a more than a one. And yeah, come to think of it, this one probably is a bit wasteful now as well. Don't really need it, but whatever. We'll deal with that next time or something. And what was the second one? And on to set, I believe there was set selected, but where on the method where we just select one object as the only object. Basically, we were checking everything that we added to the selected objects list if it had a tile master class. So we were trying to call this line on it, and if it didn't, it would result in an error. So basically, we just added a check to see if it is a tile, then we'll call on select, and if not, we don't, basically. Right. Sorry. Okay, now I've got those 2 quick alterations out of the way. First off, I've added a selection manager. Go to the selection manager to automatically switch between if we want to select a building or a unit. So basically, while we're sort of scrolling around, it'll be basically using a raycast in a similar way to how we find what to change the cursor to. So you'll see the cursor changes to whatever. Or it should do, but whatever. I don't know why that's not working. Oh well. Yeah, it changes to like the sword, or to spear, and then to the arrow based on what the raycast that goes to the mouse position is hitting. So basically, for setting what selection mode it's in. We're basically firing a raycast, and if we hit a building, we're setting selection mode buildings, else we're setting selection mode units, because you'll probably have more units than buildings. So yeah, that's how that works. So I'll just show you that script. Selection manager, all the way up here. So basically, if we've not got anything selected so far, and we're not creating a building or selecting tiles, then we are on decide selecting mode, which basically fires the raycast to the mouse position. Actually, we don't need that, do we? If I think the method was there, wasn't it? Sorry. If get selection raycast dot tag. Yeah, sorry, this is just like a bit meaningless. We don't need another version of it. So yeah, basically we are checking if the game object we get from the mouse position, if that game object's tag is equal to building, then we are basically in the selecting mode for building. So if we click, we'll select that building. But if we're not, if it's anything else, so it doesn't matter if it's resources or whatever, or just nothing, or just normal tiles, we'll select units. Yeah. So yeah, and yeah, basically we've also got a new method for if selection mode is selecting mode's buildings. So if we want to select buildings, we call the buildings check for left click, which is down at the bottom, I think. I should probably be using this actually. Properties, no. Toolbox, no. I know there's a way to bring up the bloody methods. Oh well. Buildings, check for left click is relatively simple actually. So basically, we check for a left mouse click, and if we do, we fire a raycast at the current mouse position. We use that get selection raycast as well to get the game object that's at that position at the mouse. And if that game object is tagged building, then we selected to G, to that building. And if we right click, we'll clear selected. So we'll say, all right, we don't want to select that building anymore. And that's how the selection works. Okay. Now on to the next one, which is the building action queue, which we added to the building script, which has basically a couple new variables. So we've got a list of the queue of actions we're currently executing and all the actions we can perform at all. And if that was there last time, but we're now actually using the wood cost, stone cost. These are all public ints, but I've not specified a value for them because I was thinking more it'd be easier to do that in the inspector train. One from London, but yeah. So yeah, basically you set the costs in the inspector, and I think that'll just be like an easier way to set it up because even if I don't specify a value here, it'll just default it to 0. So yeah, that's why. And we check if the build is true, then we call the actions queue monitor because we don't want to do actions, when we're not built. That'd be stupid. So first off, we check if we have any actions in the queue. If we do, we have more than one, so that'll be true. And if this first action that we're meant to be executing is not enabled, we enable it. If the building action queue has been started, or not been started, then we call start action method, which is building actions is basically made like unit actions where it's one base class with a load of virtual methods, and then these are overwritten for specific actions like creating workers or creating hoplites, which are the 2 examples I've got. And then we call do action. And then, so by calling these 2, started will be equal to true on the action. And so we go to the else on the next iteration. And if we need to call it each frame, then we call it. And once we are done with that action, we will call the onComplete method. So it's like the last thing action will do. So in this case, it'll create the respective unit. Then we get the temporarily store the reference out of the list. We remove the reference from the list and we destroy the game object that it's attached to, because we can basically instantiate sort of like a script as a child of this particular building, so it has a reference to an individual instance of that script. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, I'll show you properly in the GUI because that's where it comes up. So yeah. Now, yeah. So I've got a method in the resource manager to check that we have sufficient resources for doing an action. Basically identical to the can we construct building, except we're passing in a building action. And that basically just goes through BA's cost values. So the wood, food, stone, iron, and not gold apparently, because I didn't change it. Okay. So yeah, basically it check if all these values return true, we can do the action. But if one returns false, like we don't have enough to do that action, then we'll basically just go and do it. We'll not do it basically. Did I add another one? I don't think I did. That's good. All right, we've got these 2 example actions. So I'll go over the basically template one first. First off, we've got a prefab. So this will basically be mainly used if you're creating units of some description, because you don't like doing them. And basically, we've got the cost values of performing this action. We've got a boolean to say, do we want to call it each frame? So in this case of creating workers, we do, because we want to count down a timer to see how long it constructs. We've got a float for that timer. Again, we set all these in the inspector, just for simplicity's sake for setting it up. And we can play about with them if you're testing to see how the balance works and whatnot. And got a boolean to see if it's been started. First off, we've got a do action. This basically just contains the action. Let's say you'd count down the timer to 0. Start action would set start to true and reduce the resources by the amount that you would do. Costs, so say making a worker costs 100 food. On complete, which basically just instantiate the worker at the building that the script is attached to. Can we do this action? So basically we check, do we have enough resources to perform this? Or if you had some more advanced systems, say upgrades or whatever, do we have the correct upgrades to perform this action? Are we done? Basically you just return, is the timer less than or equal to 0? And we have 2 strings for get button text. This is basically just what you'll see in the button if you click on the building that has this action. And get progress basically returns a vague idea of how the progress is going. So basically this will return what you're doing and how many seconds you got left to do it, basically. And again, thing for building action. So we've got do action, which just counts down the timer if it's more than 0. Start action reduces the food by the food cost, because it's only costs food to build workers. And on complete basically just grabs the building that the worker is a child of, this script is a child of, gets the go-to tile, which is basically the tile below the building, as I've explained a couple of times before, so I won't go over it again. Then basically just instantiates the prefab at the spawn position at a rotation of 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, adds it to the unit manager, so that unit will get recognised for all the clicking and raycasting and stuff like that. And we're reducing resources again because I forgot to remove it, so bye that. And yeah, and then got are we done, so it returns true if the time is less than or equal to 0. And get button text basically shows you basically creating worker, how much that costs, and creating worker for timer for get progress. And a similar thing for create hoplite, you can see here. There we go. And I'll just show you quickly in the inspector as well. Because basically we've got a new sort of parent for it, just to store them under. And we've got build hoplite, so we can drag and drop into the inspector here. and we could just like set the worker cost, so I could change it to like 99999. Do that and click play, and I'll build a building, a temple. We'll just see that once this temple is built, that we cannot actually build a worker because we do not have sufficient food. So I'll just give it a minute. Very nice Mentos gum. Strawberry, apple, and raspberry. What an age to live in. So yeah, as you can see by the slightly off button, but you know, it gets the point across. Well, not button. Basically, if we don't have the resources to do the action, it draws a box that just says you don't have enough resources. Okay, and with that, we're probably onto the GUI actually. Resource manager, build actions. Yeah, got that. Draws buttons, GUI manager. Okay. So first off, we've got a new bit here to check if the selection mode is on selecting modes.buildings. We'll draw the GUI background and then draw the building action buttons. So first off, we get the selected building, which it's it's stored as a list, but since we've only got one way, we can only select one building at a time. At the moment, it'll always be the building at index 0 will be the selected building, so that'll be that. So we can just reference building 0, and that's that. I could in the future add like filtering buttons for selecting multiple buildings at once if that is something you want to do. Yeah, or not. I will do that if there is demand. And then so basically we get the building script off that first building in the list, or the only building in the list, yeah. And then we get the build actions, which is basically just b.getComponent. Wait, why am I getting the component again? I must have forgotten to take that out. So we're getting the actions we can perform, which, as I said before, is that. So basically it's just a list of actions. So in this case we can perform one, which is build worker. And for each action, so basically if the building can do any actions, this first bit is for getting the little box of info at the side. So basically we get queue info, and if there aren't any actions queued, we just say no actions. Else we get the progress of the first action, which will be the one being executed, and then we get the length of the queue -1 to show how many actions after that we've got to perform. So that's that. We also display the building's name and the building's health and its max health. And if you don't know what these are line breaks, basically. You add them in there and it creates a new line in your text. Remember, that's a backslash, I think. It has to be a backslash, not forward slash. Because that is marking an escape character, I think. I should know this. I've been writing a parser, I think it is. Yeah, parser, my computer science course. So, escape characters, they're a pain in the ass. But yeah, so basically we draw a box of that info, and then, like the unit selection and building construction menus, we go through each of these building actions and draw a button for it. And if we can perform the action, so we've got sufficient resources or the criteria have been met, then we draw this button. And then if that button is clicked, so we get the text, the ba.getButton text, and this is a different overload of the transform, instantiate method, sorry. Basically, what we're doing is providing in a component. So this is just the BA. So say it might be a create worker, build an action, and we provide in another game object, transform, rather than position. What this will do is create a blank game object based off of this. So it'll basically just create a blank game object. It's the equivalent of creating a blank game object that's a child of the building that's selected, and adding the building action that you want to do to that object, that new child object. And then we add that new script, we store that new script, we have to cast it as a building action first, because instantiate just returns an object. You have to specify what the thing is that you've created. And then we add BA new to the building action queue. And assuming that we don't have anything in the queue at that point, it'll just start straight away. And if we don't have the resources to do that action, we just have draw a box in the same location, saying we've got not enough resources to do whatever that is. And like all the other ones we've gone before, we've got basically a rect that uses an X and Y offset. So if we have more than 5 actions, it'll create a new row of actions, just to keep things a bit neater. Well, before I do a proper GUI overhaul, which will be quite a while, because I like the programming side of stuff, not the artsy stuff, but whatever. Okay, so hopefully that made sense. One thing I will have to point out is when we're destroying, so we created a new action which is stored in a child game object of the building that's selected. Once that action is done, you have to destroy ba.gameObject, so that'll destroy the child object that the building action was attached to while it was in the script in the queue to be activated or run. And that is because if you just call destroy BA, it'll leave a load of blank game objects as a child of that building, and you don't really want that. I don't think it'd cause too much of a performance hit in the long run. Well, if you played for fucking ages, it would, but but it helps just clean it up a bit. And there's another train going past. I've gone to Bristol because it's short. Yeah. Okay. Was there anything else? No, that's it, actually. So, let's give a quick showcase once again. So, if I show you, actually, I'll need to really reduce the price of it, won't I? 50. Will do. So, if we select the workers, we want to build a temple, so we can build some more workers. You lot can start off somewhere. I will eventually make a way to make the workers appear around all the edges of the building, not just this one bit at the bottom. It shouldn't be too hard to do, but I just need to find a place that'd be appropriate to do it. So if I click this, naturally I'll just move you out of the way first, so you lot can go over there and be there. So you can see I can just queue up a load of workers, and each time the action starts, rather than when you queue it, it takes away the food if you have enough. If you don't, I think it'll just remove it from the queue, hopefully. And you can see we've got more workers, but we don't have a storehouse, so we need to do that. And yeah. So you can see we've got our own little RTS starting to appear, to come about, So yeah, so cheers for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Ignore those argument out of range exceptions. I know what they are. They are, I think, once the units reach the end of their particular action queue, it'll try and do one more iteration and then realise that there's nothing in the queue, so it'll stop. But it just has that error that I need to clean up. Sorry about that. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all that shit. Go check out my stuff on Itch.io, Loud or Quiet. I had a recent update because I had a massive ass bug that I didn't fix in it. I'm so sorry. I forgot to bloody add a scene in to let you access another level. And yeah, so I've been working on that. Change it up a bit, rebalancing some weapons. I added like little health packs and stuff, and paid bills and ammo boxes to it, which you can find out in the levels. What else? A make station still a thing. I'm still trying to get a degree. 3 teaching weeks left, and then I have to go out and get a real job, or hopefully do this if you buy my shit. So yeah, just watching. Bye.